Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing a review of a film from South Korea, Korean language English subs, released in the year 2002, directed by Chan-Wook Park, and this film is called Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. Now this is part of a trilogy. I will be reviewing the whole trilogy. I haven't actually seen Lady Vengeance, which was the latest one. I will see that soon and I will be doing a review of it, but in the meantime I'm going to be doing a review of the first one, which is Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, and then Old Boy. So, yeah, the story to Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance is as follows. A deaf mute is desperate to save his sister's life, but can't raise the money for the kidney transplant. Out of desperation, he and his terrorist girlfriend kidnap a wealthy businessman's daughter in order to raise the cash, only to find that the cost of their actions will have to be paid in torture and pain. So the main character is a deaf mute. He is working at a steel company and he has recently been laid off. So he is desperate because his sister needs a kidney transplant, otherwise she's going to die. So he has no idea what he's going to do. So his terrorist girlfriend comes up with a plan. What they're going to do is kidnap the CEO of this steel company's daughter. Now, the CEO is really rich, and this seems to be the only solution for the money problems of this main character. So they're going to kidnap the daughter, they're going to issue the ransom, they're going to get the money, and their problems are going to be solved. Doesn't quite go as planned because they end up kidnapping the daughter, but events spiral out of control, and what happens from that point on is going to result in a lot of pain and suffering from all the characters involved. So I know that's a very vague rundown of the synopsis, but trust me, the less you know about this one, the better. So please go out there and see this film for yourself if you want to know how it unfolds. Now, my thoughts on this film. I didn't really know what to expect with this one. I watched Old Boy first, which is probably a bad thing, and probably not really giving this film a fair go, because Old Boy really elevated South Korean cinema and really set a very high standard. So to come into this film, I had really big expectations. I know that was wrong to do because it's going to be very rare that Chan-Wook Park is going to elevate himself to the heights of Old Boy. But I was willing to give this one a go and at least come across as something powerful. And I was not disappointed by what I got. Unfortunately, it is not a masterpiece because it does have arrogance to it, and therefore it kind of put me off a little bit. I'll explain exactly what I mean by that a little bit later, but first I'm going to go into the positives. Now, this film is about tragedy. The movie is about ignorance, lack of understanding for other people. The difference between the contrasting difference between the rich and the poor, how the rich think they've got it all and they really don't care about anyone else, and how desperate the poor will get. And the desperation and the things that desperation will cause. So the movie centers around tragedy. There is no real villain and there's no real hero that you really support. Therefore, the film centers around sympathy. And at the end of the movie, when it has its outcome, you will not feel very satisfied at all, and it will leave you with a very empty and gut-wrenching sort of feeling. And that's exactly what the director wanted, and that's exactly what you go through. This is a roller coaster of pain and suffering. The characters are drawn out so well that when they go through this desperation, now I'm not going to give anything away, but by halfway through the film, the roles kind of switch and the desperation goes from one person to another. And when these bad things happen, you never feel any anger towards each and every character. You just feel sheer sympathy, and that's really appropriately titled Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, because no matter what these characters do, things are going to go bad, and it's not going to have any good outcome for anybody involved. So that's something that's very, very rare in cinema these days. It kind of has a hero to root for and a villain to hate. But when you don't have that sort of clear-cut thing, you don't know what to do and you don't know what your response should be. So in the end, it will leave you very, very depressed. And if you're in a depressed mood, I would say stay away from this one because, as I said, it's about human tragedy and there is no real villain and there's no real hero. So, yeah, tragedy is really the only villain in the film. Acting absolutely brilliant. Kang-ho plays the businessman. He starts off as very confident, but by the end of it, he becomes a dribbling mess, and for reasons that are very understandable. And then you've got the guy who played the mute. Now, he did a fantastic job. There was no dialogue for him at all, obviously, and I felt that he portrayed a very sympathetic character in his actions. His body language towards the end of the film was really heartbreaking, and as I said, the outcome for each and every character is just a hell of a lot of sadness. So Chan-Wook Park has created something very different from Old Boy. It's not quite as shocking as Old Boy, but it has equal emotion in it, and that's something that is very evident of a very good film director. So the soundtrack was non-existent. I was very surprised to see that If the film did have a soundtrack, I can't remember it. So it was very, very minimal. And that's something that Chan-Wook Park is not known for. Chan-Wook Park's soundtrack in Old Boy helped contribute to a very, very intense sort of feeling of dread. Whereas in this movie, the soundtrack isn't there to dictate when you should be feeling a certain emotion and when you shouldn't be feeling a certain emotion. So Chan-Wook Park has enough respect for the audience in this film to really make up their own mind as to whether or not they should be feeling sorry for this person or not. So that is another thing that I thought. I kind of feel that a strong soundtrack is a little bit of a cheap trick. And, especially in horror films where you get a certain sort of eerie soundtrack and, you know something scary is about to happen because when that soundtrack is getting, you can kind of feel, it's hard to explain, but you'll know what I mean. It kind of elevates itself, and then you know when the bad thing's going to happen by the fact that the soundtrack kind of explodes. Whereas in this movie, you don't exactly know when something is going to happen. You know something bad's going to happen, but because there is a lack of soundtrack, you don't know exactly when. So it keeps you in sort of limbo, and for that, I really appreciated that. The ending, absolutely fantastic. As I said, very empty feeling, a very empty feeling in a very good way. And the whole film just makes you think about society and makes you think about life, ignorance. If certain characters reacted in a different way, if there was a lot more caring amongst these people, then the outcome wouldn't have been the same. So you kind of felt like if you did this, then, this wouldn't happen, and then this wouldn't happen, and then this wouldn't happen. It's kind of like a chain event as a result of ignorance and, lack of understanding for people from a different walk of life. And as I said, the contrasting difference between the rich and the rich not really caring, and then the poor acting out of desperation because of the situation they're facing. The pace is very brisk. It runs very smoothly. It goes for 2 hours, but at no stage does it feel like it drags. I felt that I was entranced the whole way through, and that's something that Chan-Wook Park does very well. All of his films are quite long, but at no stage does it feel like you're going through a saga. When in fact, you kind of feel disappointed that it's finished because you kind of get so enthralled into the storyline that you feel that you're going along the ride as well. And that the emotion projects itself through the screen very well in this film. Cinematography very, very bright, very reminiscent of typical Chan-Wook Park. He has a lot of attention to detail in what he does, and therefore, as I said, it's a real joy to watch. Visually, it's a stunning film, and emotionally, it's also stunning. So the script is very good as well. There is a little bit of comedy put into it, although it's at no stage is it ever dark humor. I felt that not real comedy. I think comedy is a bit misleading, but light-hearted moments that kind of lift your mood a little bit. But then the cruel thing about the film is that the next minute it's a shocking moment. So it's kind of like Chan-Wook Park is playing with your emotions and he's having a lot of fun doing it. So sadistic kind of pleasure in playing with the person as a viewer. So you really experience it. You don't just watch it, you survive it. The violence is very shocking, especially towards the end, but nothing is ever glorified. It's painted in a very, very ugly way. As I said, the violence comes from desperation, and therefore it's not painted in a Quentin Tarantino style. So, the violence is very, very hard to stomach, especially towards the end. I thought that was truly heartbreaking, and it's not really a scene that I want to watch anytime soon again. So, all that combined, fantastic film, but unfortunately I just couldn't help but feel that there was slight arrogance towards it. There were some scenes in the movie that I'm not going to go through, I don't want to spoil anything, but I felt that there was a heightened sense of arrogance, self-indulgence, sort of pretentious value. There were some scenes that I thought were shot in a way that really didn't need to be shot, and I felt that, yes, Chan-Wook Park is a very good director, and it kind of feels like in the film he knows it and he's showing off a little bit. So that kind of sidetracked me a little bit. It put me off a little bit, but fortunately the positives far outweigh the negatives. So you might get put off a little bit by the arrogance, and it's kind of force-feeding you this sort of unnecessary value, but by the end of it, you will be so distracted by how well the story is told and how much you can connect to the characters that you won't really mind the negatives. So, all in all, a fantastic film by Chan-Wook Park. I'm giving it 4.5 stars. Not as good as Old Boy, but certainly a film that every Asian film fan and any foreign film fan in general has to go and see. So, absolutely fantastic film. Slightly marred by a hint of arrogance, but, overall, it's a very, very memorable experience. So 4.5 stars for the Korean film Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. Go out there and see it as soon as possible. Alright guys, that's my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.